quite nerve-wracking, actually, I must admit, for a sports journalist to be interviewing, film personalities. But you're not a film personality. So these days, is Abhishek Bachchan film actor, producer, film person first, sports entrepreneur second? Or is Abhishek Bachchan sports entrepreneur first, film person second?
Okay.
I thought I'd start with a tough one, so just to get us warmed up.
Well, good evening, everyone. First and foremost, my apologies. Mumbai traffic had its way with me today. I've come from Goregaon for most of the South Mumbaiites. That's a part of Mumbai. It's about 2 hours drive north of here where I was shooting, so I'm sorry for being late. And it's wonderful that we're here for this evening. Thank you, Forbes. Like Gaurav just said, we're starting the evening 30 under 30 with 2 guys who are well into their 40s. So
some of them are grayer than the others in their 40s, but you enjoy that privilege.
yes, we also have the benefit of makeup. No, I'm first and foremost and always will be an actor first, and then a sports fan, not a sports entrepreneur. And I think that's been my journey in sports, and that's the way I like to approach my business of sports, is to see it from a fan perspective, and that's helped me so far.
Can you, Abhishek, for us recall the very first time, and tell us the story of how this idea even got planted in your head? Gosh, you can own a kabaddi franchise and actually help develop something of this nature. I have to tell you, the cynical sports journalists on the outside said, kabaddi, that comes into our lives once in 4 years when India wins an Asian Games medal, and then we forget about it. And here you were being convinced to actually invest money and run a kabaddi business. Tell us the story.
It's actually a story I love to talk about, and as you'll probably notice during this evening, it's a topic I'm very passionate about. So about 5-6 years ago, an acquaintance of mine, Mr. Charu Sharma, we met at a social gathering, and we got talking, and he knew that I'm a big basketball and football fan. And we were discussing that. He said, look, I know you're very big on basketball and football, but have you ever thought about kabaddi? And I kind of did a double take on that. I said, kabaddi, no. I mean, we played it a bit as kids, but that was about it. He said, well, let me come talk to you about it. And we set up a meeting. He came, and he reintroduced me to kabaddi. And, sadly, at that point of time, my memories of kabaddi was still us playing, with a group of friends on some mud, and that was it. And he showed me a video of one of the Asian Games, and luckily enough, of one of the legends of the sport who's sitting amongst us, Ajay Thakur.
Yes.
And
please, a big round of applause
yes,
for Ajay here.
possibly one of the greatest kabaddi players we've had, and captain of India right now, and somebody who makes us all very proud. Until we played the Pro Kabaddi League, because then he's in a rival team. But it's from Chennai, so it's all right. And it was wonderful because I saw this sport. It was played on a mat. It was produced like any normal big-time league sport is. And it just blew my mind. And I said, my God, this is fantastic. He said, this isn't it. You have to go see a match as well. And then I actually went, shockingly, to see a match live. It was in my neighborhood. I live in North Mumbai in Juhu. And it was played in a chawl. And there were almost 10,000 people there cheering. And the energy was unbelievable.
None of those were distracted by suddenly a big film star showing up in the middle of...
No, I wore a
kabaddi?
cap and a hoodie, and I went incognito. And no, I was briefly there, but that energy was unbelievable. And I said, we have to do something with this. And then he told me that Mr. Mahindra and him were putting together the league. And I just was dying to sign up. And it was something that happened very instinctively. I actually got into the business part of it a lot later. First, it was just a very instinctive decision driven by passion and by what I saw. So that's pretty much how it started. And I still remember the first ever auction that we had for the players. Nobody knew who the players were. We didn't know what they did. There were 8 franchises, and hired some coaches, and we were directed that these are the coaches you can choose from. And I remember just, I was given a list of the coaches that were available, and I literally just said, okay, Balwant Singh, that sounds nice. I'll take him. And he happened to be the Team India coach at that point in time. Didn't end up being our coach because he was in the services, and the services didn't get permission to partake in the first season. And that's how it started. And the auction was like, okay, you choose the team, and we didn't know anything. And it just started off from there.
It's while researching this, and I did actually spend some time trying to look at the backstory that's been built around this success. I came across a wonderful quote from you, and I'd like you to actually share that with the audience. You said, a lot of corporates got involved in the first season of the Kabaddi, and it was only you who got involved as an individual. So you decided that you had to perhaps do 3 films just to bankroll this entire exercise. How did those films do, by the way, the ones that you signed, and did that help?
That sounds like a great excuse for a film not doing well. Right? No, those films were all huge hits, thankfully. But yes, I mean, I was just trying to... I was being asked about how I financed the Kabaddi team. And I said, we had Kotak Mahindra Bank, we had Yes Bank, we had the Future Group, we had, Ronnie Screwwala. We had all these huge corporates come in, and I actually had to go and sign 3 films to start, planning how to run this team. But that was okay. I mean, I think I've turned that around now from having to sign those 3 films. From season 2, actually, I went into profit. And by the grace of God, have been in profit since. And
so the company actually pays you a salary now?
No, I don't. I'm one of those people who doesn't take a salary from my company. I capped it. I believe that's a famous thing today. Yeah. So no, I don't take a salary from the company, but it makes money, thankfully, and we put it back into the sport and for the next season.
I think there's so many fascinating aspects to this journey, and we should, as much as time allows, talk about it. But there was another side of this which intrigued me, which involves your father. I think a few people here might know who that is. He's done a lot of things in his life, a lot of performances, a lot of exceptional roles and things of that nature. In 1978, he does a film called Ganga Ki Saugandh. Obviously, I don't think you would have seen it at the time. You were 2 years old or something. And he plays the character of Jiva. And then, when you start to get into Kabaddi again, or maybe in your teens, he introduces you once again to this film that he's been part of and to his learnings from there. Can you talk to that a little bit, Abhishek?
I'm 43, by the way. He's just told you how old I was at 78, so...
Don't think that's that very difficult. Wikipedia,
no,
everyone can look at it.
We're talking about youth and experience. Experience counts for a lot. I don't remember the exact year, but it must have been in the early 80s, actually. Every Sunday, that was the only time we were allowed to watch movies. And Sunday afternoon, if anybody grew up in the 80s, we had Doordarshan, and they showed the Sunday movie. And they were showing Ganga Ki Saugandh. And as any excited Bachchan fan, after the movie, you go into the garden and try and reenact what he did. And in Ganga Ki Saugandh, there's a sequence where he plays Kabaddi. So my dad happened to be at home, and I said, hey, this is way cool. What is this? Can you teach it to me? So I still remember in our backyard, he drew a Kabaddi court, and he taught me Kabaddi. And then we used to play Kabaddi. I had an elder sister and 4 cousins, and a couple of friends. We used to all get together and play Kabaddi. And then later in school, I played a bit of Kabaddi. We then subsequently, in the mid-80s, moved to New Delhi because my father joined politics. And in New Delhi, we used to play Kabaddi in the school that I was. But then I lost touch with it. So, yeah, my father taught me Kabaddi. And he was a bit shocked when I told him that, we're going to be doing this. And he, like most of us, wasn't really sure of where this was headed. But he was the person who taught me how to play, and has been one of my biggest supporters ever since.
So 2014 is when you buy this kabaddi team. Actually goes on to win the title in the first year itself. But then you decide, oh, my life isn't complicated enough. So you decide to buy a football team to make it even harder. Did you have to then sign 6 other films to bankroll that?
So the decision to invest in the ISL was taken actually during the Kabaddi season.
Okay.
I've been a huge admirer of the sport of football since I was a kid, again, because of my father. I think most children here will tell you that your parents kind of introduce you to most of the stuff you do in life. And my first memories of football were, again, in the early 80s and watching an unbelievable Brazilian team play the World Cup. And I just remember there was a player called Junior, and that kind of appealed to me for obvious reasons. And I just got hooked onto Brazilian football because my father was a huge fan of Socrates and Zico and Pelé. And the football journey started from there. Then when I was about 9 years old, I was sent to a boarding school in Europe. It was a British boarding school. And if you grew up in a British boarding school, football is a way of life. I was thrown out of the football team when I tried out and made it to the basketball team. So basketball actually is my first love. But being in a British boarding school, you kind of just followed English football. My uncle, at that point of time, my father's brother, lived in London, and they used to live in SW6, which is the Chelsea area. So you grew up being a Chelsea fan before Mr. Abramovich took over. So for any Man United fans who want to call me a rent boy, so yeah, I've been following Chelsea for a very long time and always wanted to do something with Indian football. The wish, Gaurav, was always to do something in Indian sport. From the minute I became an actor, I always dreamt that I'd love to do something to be able to contribute. I was pretty sure I didn't want to do anything in cricket because, shockingly, I never really played too much cricket growing up. I would have loved to do something in football, in basketball. Like I said, Kabaddi was a bit left field, but when the opportunity presented itself, I knew that I wanted to do something that I could maybe try and help and make a change. I mean, you have wonderful, wonderful, great sports people here, and I think they'll all tell you one thing that, we can always do with better facilities, better funding, and all-round help apart from cricket. We have a huge country, we have outstanding athletes, a lot of them are sitting here, and they're capable of doing even better than what they're doing if they just get that extra boost. So that was the need and the want to do something in sports, and football came about with the ISL. In the first round of bidding, me and my partner in the ISL, Vita Dani, we didn't manage to win the bid. And then what happened was there was a team from Bangalore which then dropped out, and one place opened up, and the opportunity to go to Chennai and start Chennai NFC. The reason we chose Chennai is because Chennai traditionally is known for cricket and CSK. So again, we saw an opportunity. We know that it's a sports-loving city. And there's this whole culture of heroes over there. So we knew that we'd get support. We just needed to sow a seed of football as well. So there was a huge potential in that market. And we decided to go for Chennai, and we started Chennai NFC. So actually, the night we won the Pro Kabaddi League, it was just down the road at the NSCI. It was the 31st of August, if I'm not mistaken. And we won the league, and I was in shock. And I couldn't even celebrate because I was actually taking a midnight flight to fly to Rome to sign Marco Materazzi, who was going to be my manager. So it was just, those 6 months was just like a roller coaster.
Yeah, and often, the backstory of how these things come to life isn't truly broadcast and understood by the world outside, but there's a lot of work. In journalism, we have a concept called there's a difference between the church and the state, which essentially means that as editorial, we work very different to marketing. I'm driving at something here. I'll get there.
Are you sure about that?
Not anymore. But
read the papers recently?
But we'll get there. The point I'm driving at is in sport. You're the team owner. But then there's skilled professionals who you bring in to run the team. Is there a temptation, Abhishek, and are you ever, especially when things are not going well, and in sport that happens all the time, how do you resist it? Do you resist it? To be able to separate yourself from the actual playing of the sport and leaving that to the people that you've employed to do that? Or is there a tendency to say, listen, I've just got to go in and talk to my players, they're just not doing well enough?
It's a fine balance. It's a personality thing. It's what you like. I'm a very, very involved owner in that sense. I travel with the team. I stay with the team. I'm there at their practice. I try and practice with them when I can. I'm available, and I'm at most of the team meetings before a match. I do try and say something inspirational, which usually backfires, because in my head, I'm giving that agle 70 minute tumse koi nahi chhin, the whole Chak De India. We're actors, we think like that, you mug up all the famous sports films dialogues.
We were just talking before we came on stage about Any Given Sunday.
Yeah,
where
so
there's
that I've actually done that inch by inch speech, which makes no sense in football or in kabaddi, but, I said it. And the players all looked at me like, what's he on about? But anyway, they respond well. I'm very, very involved. It is very difficult for me as a person to remove myself from the situation and just sit in the owner's box in the AC and wave out and clap. I find that very difficult. If you've seen any footage of me at a match, I'm pretty involved. I'm more of a rabid fan than a team manager or owner. So for me, it's very difficult. In kabaddi, there's more involvement because kabaddi is just, it's a lot more basic a structure than in football. Football has great systems already in place. In kabaddi, it's more interpersonal. So in kabaddi, there's that much more involvement. But now I started realizing that maybe I'm being a hindrance, so I need to try and take a step back. It's very difficult, though. But again, it's a personality thing.
Right, I'm being told we have to finish, but I want to ask you one final thought before we actually do. In your line of work, before you became a sports entrepreneur as well, you've endured failure and success. Was it easier to deal with failure because you'd dealt with failure professionally, even in your line of work, before you got into sports entrepreneurship?
I've always said, nobody can deal with failure. Failure deals with you. And you can only learn from failure. The one thing you learn in sport, which I used to play in a limited capacity in my school and college days, is how to pick yourself up and carry on. And that helped me a lot in my acting career, that no matter what life throws at you, you got to just roll with the punches. And to think on your feet, Mike Tyson said something very interesting. He says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And life does that to you, and it's exciting. And, sports teaches you to keep rolling with it and get on with it. And so, in fact, sports taught me a lot about how to deal with my acting life instead of vice versa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that was the headline that came towards the end about how sports taught you as much as it has. Best of luck with Jaipur as well as Chennai.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time, Abhishek.
Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.